it's Stephanie and welcome back to my channel. Today I am bringing you my September wrap-up part 2. So if you're new to my channel, I decided recently to separate my wrap-ups into 2 videos because lately I've been reading so much. My videos were super long, so I'm trying to do it this way so that I can do shorter videos while still being able to actually review the books and not have to rush. So let's just jump right in. In the last video, I reviewed the first 10 books I read in September. So starting off with number 11 in this video, I read The Right Swipe by Alicia Rye. And this follows the story of Rhiannon and Samson, and they both work for competing dating companies. One is similar to Tinder, and the other one is similar to a more old-fashioned type site like eHarmony, where they ask a lot more questions. And Rhiannon and Samson have kind of a past, and then they get thrown together, and things go from there. I gave this book 2 stars. I really wanted to like this book, and the premise of it sounded really interesting, and it sounded like it would be a really fun, lighthearted rom-com, but maybe I just wasn't in the right headspace at the time. But I just thought this just drug on, and I couldn't do it. And I will be honest, I did not finish this book, but I got about 70% of the way through it, and then I DNF'd it. So I did give a rating to it, but in my review I did make sure to say that I did DNF it. Someone's crabby today. I knew this was gonna have some like steamy scenes when they finally got to the romance part. I see you, Lucy. But it was just taking forever. And then things kept happening where when things finally were about to start happening, they'd get interrupted, and I just wanted to throw the book, but I couldn't because I read it on my Kindle. And I felt like I got 70% of the way through the book and nothing really happened. And I just wasn't invested in the characters. I didn't care. Rhiannon was supposed to be intentionally unlikable, I think. But usually with unlikable characters, somehow there's some kind of little redeeming quality or something that you can really latch onto where you kind of connect with them. And I just felt that she was extremely cold and just not likable at all. I did not like her at all. And Samson, he was okay. He was just a cookie cutter type jock that was just trying to live his best life. So 2 stars. I was really disappointed. The next book I read was Labyrinth Lost by Zoraida Cordova. I read this for a challenge in the Latinx-a-thon, and I really enjoyed this. This follows the story of Alex, and she is a bruja, or a witch, but she doesn't want to be a bruja. On her death day celebration, she performs this spell that's supposed to rid herself of all her power, but instead it sends her family into thin air, and she is then stuck with this person she doesn't trust but can help her recover her family, and the story proceeds from there. I wanted to read this book since I found out about it, and it's just been sitting on my shelf, and I'm glad I finally got to it. I really liked the atmosphere, and I loved the world that Alex had to go through in order to get her family back. and I thought it was so atmospheric and creepy at times, but it was just so cool. This is an own voices novel, so the author is a Latinx author, but I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I am definitely going to read the next book in the series. If you hear crunching or loud noises, but just chewing on his elk horn, again, while I'm filming. Next, I read the Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater. This is the second book in the Raven Cycle series, and I read this for the Raven Cycle read-along that was hosted by Books and Lala. And this is the second book in a series, so I won't go into the synopsis of this, but the first book follows a girl, Blue, and 4 boys from the local Aglenby Academy, and Blue lives in a family of psychics, and she has been told since birth that she will kill her true love with a kiss. And also in the story we follow Gansey, and he is on the hunt for this dead Welsh king Glendower, and the lore says that whoever finds Glendower and wakes him up will be granted a wish. So they team up and journey on from there. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I think this is my favorite one in the quartet because Ronan is my favorite character, and it follows mainly Ronan's story in here. I will say Maggie Stiefvater has a very distinct writing style that takes some getting used to. And the first time I read The Raven Boys, I gave it 3 stars just because I thought it was hard for me to get kind of in the writing, and then I thought the plot didn't really go anywhere. But now that I've read the whole series, looking back, the second time I read it, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The series is a lot more character driven than plot driven, so keep that in mind. But I will say, after reading the whole series, going back and starting over, you see so many things that Maggie Stiefvater just blatantly told you that you just read over like, okay, fine. But then when you reread it, it's like, oh my god, that was a glaring clue. So, highly recommend. Next, I read Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie Maniscalco. This is the first book in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. This follows the story of Audrey Rose Wadsworth, and she wants to be a mortician in a time when females just did not do that kind of work. It's set in the time period of the actual Jack the Ripper in London. And so Audrey sneaks out to work in her uncle's lab and train as an apprentice mortician. And in the process, she meets this guy, Thomas Cresswell, who is also studying with her uncle. And together they get thrown into a series of grisly murders, and they decide to investigate. And it turns out the murders were committed by someone named Jack the Ripper, and they decide that they are going to figure out who is the real Jack the Ripper. And I went into this with low expectations, and I ended up absolutely loving it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed Audrey's character. She is very headstrong, and she's not the stereotypical woman of the time. She loves science, and she loves the human body and studying how it works. And she really reminded me of Maura Isles from Rizzolian Isles, and I thought that was such a cool resemblance to see. And I also loved Thomas. He was so witty, and he would just say such good like one-liners to get you to just fall in love with him, and he's such a sweetie. But reading this, I read the first half physical and audio, just kind of switching off and on the first few days, And then I got to the last 100 pages and I just binge read that book. I thought I knew the ending and I wasn't too far off, but it still shocked me. So I loved it, and I'm really excited to jump into the next book, Hunting Prince Dracula. Next, I read Pride by E.B. Savoy. This is a Pride and Prejudice remix that is set in modern-day Brooklyn, and it follows the story of Zuri Benitez, or Elizabeth, and Darius Darcy, or Mr. Darcy. And this was interesting. I think I loved the idea of this, and Pride and Prejudice is one of my all-time favorite books, period. And there's just something about E.B. Savoy's writing that just doesn't, I guess, fit with my tastes. Like, it's not a bad book at all. I think the idea she had was excellent, and I think the execution was good. I gave it 3 stars, but I think that's more on me than in actually like the quality of the book, if that makes sense. Well, that was eerie. It was good. It just wasn't really for me. But overall, I did enjoy my read of this book. Next, I read The Steel Prince by V.E. Schwab. This is a graphic novel that is a prequel to the Darker Shade of Magic series, and I gave it 4 stars. The artwork was really gorgeous, and the storyline was good. Honestly, I think I would have given it a 5 stars had I read A Darker Shade of Magic, because as someone who hasn't read it yet, it was a hair confusing as to what was going on, but I still did enjoy my time reading it. So I think I'm going to go back and reread it after I've read A Darker Shade of Magic, and I think it'll definitely be a 5-star read then. The next 3 books are kids books, and if you didn't know, I'm doing my elementary school library practicum right now. So I've been every week going and spending the day in a local elementary school library, and I'm shadowing and learning about how the library works and all that jazz. So the next 3 books are books that we read during story time for kindergarten and 1st grade, but they were so cute that I included them on my list because I loved them. So the first book is A Book Is Just Like You by Kathleen Fox. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, and it's basically, the author is saying how a book is just like the reader, like we wear clothes, but the book has a cover, things like that. I just thought it was adorable, and the illustrations were gorgeous, so I definitely recommend. Next, we read Dude by Aaron Reynolds, and this was such a cute book. There are only 2 words in the whole book. One is dude, and the other one is a surprise, so no spoilers. But basically the story is in the pictures, which I thought was a really clever way to get kids to pay attention to like context clues and like what's going on in the background. I gave it 5 stars. Would recommend. And the last kids book I read was What Happened to Marian's Book by Brooke Berg, and this was really cute. Marian is a hedgehog, and she gets a book from her library, and she gets a jelly stain on it. And so most of the book is her thinking of ways to try to get the stain out. For example, using toothpaste, thinking that it gets my teeth clean, so it should be able to get the stain out of the book. And the kids were just so cute, like, no, don't do it, Marian, and my heart melted. So 5 out of 5 stars again. Next, I read If I'm Being Honest by Emily Wibberley and Austin Siegman Broca. And this is a Taming of the Shrew retelling that's set in high school, and it follows the story of Cameron Bright, and she is known as a witch. She gets told this by her longtime crush. And so after hearing that, she decides that she is going to change, or at least on the outside, make it seem like she's changed so that she can win him back. And in the process, she makes friends and she learns more about herself. Honestly, I gave this 3 stars. It was pretty good. I just didn't think it was anything unique or original. Taming of the Shrew retellings are actually pretty common, like 10 Things I Hate About You. Absolutely love that movie. And this book felt like 10 Things I Hate About You, but not as funny or as good. And I really wanted to like this book. It is lighthearted. It's a kind of a rom-com. And if you're looking for just something light to read, I would recommend this, but it just wasn't my favorite. Last but not least, I read Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. And Chelsea Dowling Reads raves about this book, so I decided to use it in the Contemporary-a-thon for the prompt for a book that's beloved by the BookTube community. This follows the story of Jet Castle, and she is a clown for like birthday parties and things like that. And it also follows the story of Travis Ford, and he was a famous baseball player, and then an injury ended his career and he was forced to retire. And they are both from the same smaller town. He comes back to town and he and Georgette get to know each other as adults, and it goes from there. Honestly, when I first read this, like, I was so invested. I read it in 2 sittings and I gave it 5 stars, but looking back, I think honestly it's more of a 3.5 or 4-star book. It definitely had some cheesy moments, like the steamy scenes were a little cheesy, and he kept calling her baby girl, which at first was kind of sweet, but then he said it so much it got like... But Georgette, or Georgie, was so cute, and I did love her as a character, and I loved seeing her grow and be more confident in herself as an adult and becoming a more mature businesswoman, which I think was the redeeming quality in this story. It was pretty good. It's not an epic literary masterpiece, but if you want something fun and lighthearted that has humor, steamy scenes, and a pretty good plot line, I would check it out. That was my wrap-up part 2. Overall, in September, I read 5,997 pages, which is pretty on point for my average amount of pages read lately. So overall, it was a pretty good reading month. I only had 1 book that I really didn't like, and the rest were 3 stars and up, so I'll take it. But have you read any of these books, or did you read any of them in September? Let me know down below. And if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button. Hit the bell icon to be notified anytime I upload new content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.